Welcome back, Lincoln Currency. Imagine holding a tiny copper-colored coin in your hand, something so small, so ordinary, that most people wouldn't even give it a second glance. The 1-cent coin, commonly called the penny, has been part of our lives for so long that many of us forget just how much history, artistry, and even mystery it carries within its small frame. Today we're going to dive into one of the most fascinating stories in coin collecting, the story of the 1981 1-cent coin. Now at first, you might be wondering, what could possibly be so special about a penny minted in 1981? It's just a penny, right? Just a single cent, the lowest denomination of American coinage. But as with many objects in history, it is not the face value that gives it power. It is the story behind it, the rarity of certain editions, the tiny details hidden within the design, and the incredible market demand that can transform something ordinary into something extraordinary. The 1981 1-cent coin comes from a period of transition in American coinage. To really appreciate why it's important, we need to go back and think about what was happening in the United States during the late 1970s and early 1980s. Inflation was changing the way money was perceived. The cost of producing coins was going up, and for the U.S. Mint, there was always the balancing act between creating coins that were durable, recognizable, and affordable to produce. Since 1909, when the Lincoln cent was first introduced to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the penny had gone through different variations. By 1981, the design had already become one of the longest-running designs in American history. On the obverse side, or the front of the coin, we see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, a design that has endured for over a century. On the reverse side, in 1981, the coin still carried the image of the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, which had been introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The 1981 penny holds a special place because it was minted during the final full year before one of the biggest compositional changes in modern U.S. coinage. Prior to 1982, pennies were made mostly of copper, containing 95% copper and 5% zinc. But as the price of copper rose, it became more expensive for the U.S. Mint to keep producing pennies with so much copper content. By 1982, the decision was made to switch to a primarily zinc core with only a thin copper plating. This makes the 1981 cent one of the last true copper-based pennies ever produced in the United States. That little fact alone gives it a kind of nostalgic and historical weight, because collectors often value the end of an era, and the 1981 penny represents the last breath of the traditional copper cent now. When we talk about the physical characteristics of the 1981 penny, we're looking at a coin with a diameter of 19.05 millimeters and a weight of about 3.11 grams. This weight is a crucial detail because it distinguishes the pre-1982 copper cents from the later zinc cents, which weigh only 2.5 grams. If you ever hold one in your hand, and then compare it to a post-1982 penny, you can literally feel the difference. That heavier weight is part of what makes the older pennies more durable and, in the eyes of many, more valuable. The edges are smooth, the color is that familiar reddish-brown tone of copper, which changes over time as oxidation turns it darker or gives it a patina. The design itself is simple but iconic. On the obverse, Lincoln faces right, his gaze thoughtful and strong, the word, Liberty, inscribed to his left, the date, 1981, to his right, and the national motto, In God We Trust, arched above his head. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, every column carefully etched, with the tiny but fascinating detail that if you look closely enough with a magnifying glass, you can actually see the seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, a miniature within a miniature. Above the memorial is the phrase, United States of America, and just below it, the powerful motto, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. At the bottom is the denomination, 1 cent. But the story doesn't stop with the general design. 1981 is a fascinating year because the U.S. Mint produced pennies at multiple facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each of these locations added their own mint mark, a tiny symbol under the date, except for Philadelphia at the time, which traditionally did not include a mint mark for cents. So you may find pennies with no mark, Philadelphia, a D, Denver, or an S, San Francisco, usually reserved for proof coins. The proof coins from San Francisco are especially prized because they were struck with specially polished dies on highly reflective planchets, giving them a mirror-like finish. These are not coins meant for circulation but rather for collectors, and in pristine condition, they can command significant attention. Now, what makes the 1981 cent particularly interesting to collectors is not just that it was one of the last full copper years, but also that there are known varieties and minting errors that can dramatically increase its value. In the coin world, even the smallest difference, whether intentional or accidental, can transform a coin from being worth a penny into being worth thousands, tens of thousands, or in the rarest cases, millions. Errors such as double dies, off-center strikes, filled mint marks, or proof variations can make a 1981 penny highly desirable. For example, some 1981 S-proof cents were struck with a Type II mint mark, which has a sharper and more defined S than the earlier Type I. These subtle distinctions are what make coin collecting so endlessly fascinating, because it takes a trained eye and a lot of patience to spot them. Collectors are always searching for that one coin that slipped through the cracks, the one that has an anomaly that others missed, because the market rewards rarity. And here's where the story takes a dramatic twist. There are stories, whispers even, within the numismatic community of a 1981 penny with an extraordinary error, a coin that is said to have sold or been valued at an astronomical figure, sometimes even cited as high as $122 million. Now, let's pause here for a moment, because on the surface, that sounds unbelievable. How can a coin with a face value of 1 cent possibly reach such a mind-boggling number? And yet, in the world of collectibles, especially when rarity, history, and myth intersect, anything is possible. Think about paintings by artists that once went unnoticed selling for hundreds of millions at auctions. Think about stamps, baseball cards, even comic books that were once sold for pennies now fetching small fortunes. The same psychology applies here. For a collector with the means and the desire to own something absolutely unique, price becomes almost irrelevant. The chase, the prestige, the bragging rights of owning a one-of-a-kind item are worth more than money itself, and this is why the 1981 cent is such a fascinating subject. At first glance, it's just a penny. You could find one in your pocket change, sitting at the bottom of a jar, or rolling around in the drawer of an old desk. But hidden within that ocean of billions of pennies are treasures, variations, rarities, proofs, errors, that could make one individual coin worth more than entire houses, more than entire collections, more than anyone could have ever imagined. The very idea that a penny could be worth $122 million might sound like an exaggeration, but it's also a reminder that value is not always tied to function or material. Value is created by scarcity, by story, and by demand. As we dive deeper into this journey, we'll uncover the exact types of 1981 pennies that are most sought after, the stories of the collectors who have pursued them, the differences between the mint facilities, and why the tiniest details matter. We'll talk about the myths, the facts, and the hype. And most importantly, we'll try to answer that burning question: could a 1981 penny in your pocket actually be worth life-changing money? When we talk about the 1981 1-cent coin, we can't just lump them all together and say they're all the same. That would be like saying every car that came out in 1981 is identical, when in reality, different factories, different production methods, and different conditions create endless variation. The same is true with coins. A penny is never just a penny once you look closely enough. Each one has a story, and each one carries clues about where it was minted, how it was struck, and whether it hides small details that could make it more than just spare change. In 1981, the United States Mint was operating in full swing, producing billions of pennies for circulation. There were three main facilities that handled the production of cents: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Philadelphia, at the time, didn't put a mint mark on its pennies, so if you look at a 1981 penny and see no letter beneath the date, that's your clue it came from the Philadelphia Mint. Denver, on the other hand, marked its coins with a small d, and these pennies are among the most commonly found today. San Francisco had a different role. While it used to produce regular circulation coins decades earlier, by 1981 it was almost entirely dedicated to proof coins, special coins made specifically for collectors. These coins carry an S mint mark and were not meant to be spent in day-to-day transactions. They were struck with a higher level of detail, often with a shiny, mirror-like background and frosted designs that made the portrait and the Lincoln Memorial stand out brilliantly. Now here's where it gets interesting. Even though billions of pennies were made in 1981, not all pennies are created equal. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 3.1 billion of them, and Denver produced more than 5 billion. With so many coins flooding out into the world, mistakes were inevitable. Every time you produce billions of something, the odds of errors multiply, and in the coin collecting world, those errors are golden. Collectors hunt them down like treasure hunters because each mistake tells a story of how human imperfection or machine malfunction slipped through the cracks of the minting process. So, what kind of errors and varieties can you find in the 1981 pennies? One of the most famous involves the San Francisco proof coins. These proofs can be divided into two major types based on the style of the S mint mark. The Type 1 proof has a blobby, less refined S, while the Type 2 proof has a sharper, clearer, more elegant S. The difference is subtle, but in the world of coin collecting, subtle differences can mean thousands of dollars. The Type 2 proof coins are far scarcer and more desirable, which is why collectors will pay hefty premiums to own them. Even today, if you find a 1981 S-Type 2 proof penny in flawless, deep cameo condition, you're looking at something that could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on demand. But the San Francisco proofs are just one part of the story. Circulation strikes from Philadelphia and Denver also contain their share of fascinating varieties. Some coins show doubling in the date or lettering, what collectors call a double die. Imagine the dies used to strike the coin shifting slightly between strikes, creating a ghostly shadow or doubling effect on the numbers or words. To a casual observer, it might look like nothing more than a blur, but to a collector with a trained eye, it's a signal of rarity and value. A strong double die can take a penny worth 1 cent and transform it into a penny worth thousands. Then there are off-center strikes, where the coin was not perfectly aligned when it was struck by the dies. Instead of a clean, center design, part of the image might be missing or shifted, leaving a blank crescent of metal on one side. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin tends to be. There are also blockage errors, where a coin gets stuck in the press and impresses its image onto another blank planchet, creating a mirror-like design. Filled mint marks are another curiosity, where dirt, grease, or other debris fills part of the mint mark, making it look distorted or missing. Each of these errors creates a unique collectible, because no two are ever exactly alike. Collectors thrive on these varieties and errors because they tell us that perfection is an illusion. Even the mighty U.S. Mint, with all its machinery and quality control, could not escape the randomness of error. For coin enthusiasts, that randomness is magic. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. It gives each coin its own fingerprint, a uniqueness that can't be replicated. Now, let's talk about condition, because in the coin world, condition is king. A 1981 penny straight out of circulation, worn down from decades of being passed from hand to hand, is unlikely to be worth more than face value. But take that same coin in uncirculated condition, crisp edges, no scratches, full original luster, and suddenly its story changes. Uncirculated coins are windows into the past, like frozen moments in time that show us exactly what the coin looked like when it first left the mint. These coins can command far higher prices, especially when graded by professional services. A 1981 penny graded at the top levels, like MS-67 or MS-68, can fetch hundreds or thousands of dollars at auction simply because so few have survived in such pristine condition. The proof coins, too, are graded by their strike quality, with terms like cameo or deep cameo, referring to the contrast between the frosted designs and the mirrored fields. A perfect proof coin from 1981 with a Type 2 mint mark in deep cameo condition can be breathtaking, like a tiny piece of art. Collectors love these because they represent the pinnacle of minting technology and craftsmanship for the time. But here's the twist that keeps everyone hooked. Among all these billions of coins, all these variations, all these proofs and errors, there are whispers and legends of a handful of 1981 pennies that are so unique, so rare, that their value has skyrocketed beyond reason. Stories circulate in the numismatic community of a 1981 penny tied to a one-of-a-kind minting era or provenance that has been valued at extraordinary levels, even as high as $122 million. Now, most people would laugh and say that's impossible. But the market for collectibles has proven time and again that impossibility doesn't exist when desire meets scarcity. We've seen baseball cards once worth a nickel sell for millions. We've seen comic books once purchased at newsstands for pennies sell for record-breaking sums. Coins, too, follow this pattern. When something is rare enough and there are wealthy collectors eager enough, prices can leap into unimaginable territory. That's why the 1981 penny is more than just a coin. It's a symbol of possibility. Every time you look at a penny from that year, you can't help but wonder, could this be one of them? Could this be the hidden treasure everyone else overlooked? Could this be the coin that turns pocket change into generational wealth? That sense of mystery and hope is what keeps collectors searching through rolls of pennies, examining each one under magnification, and chasing after auctions with the same adrenaline rush as a treasure hunt. The beauty of the 1981 penny story is that it connects everyone. From casual hobbyists who simply like filling a coin folder with dates and mint marks, to serious investors chasing 6- and 7-figure rarities, to historians who see the coin as a marker of America's economic and cultural transition, it has something for everyone. It's a reminder that even in the smallest, most overlooked objects, there are layers of meaning, history, and value waiting to be discovered. When we talk about coins, especially the 1981 1-cent coin, we cannot avoid the topic of grading. Grading is the language of value in the coin world. It is the system that transforms opinions into measurable standards, and it is the foundation upon which auctions and sales are built. Without grading, a coin is just a coin, but with grading, a coin becomes a certified artifact, a piece of history with a seal of authenticity that collectors and investors can trust. Grading is done by professional services like the Professional Coin Grading Service, or PCGS, and the Numismatic Guarantee Company, or NGC. These organizations use a numeric scale from 1 to 70, known as the Sheldon scale, to evaluate the condition of coins. A grade of 1 represents a coin that is barely identifiable, worn nearly flat, while a grade of 70 represents absolute perfection, a coin with no marks, no blemishes, nothing that can be seen even under magnification. For the 1981 penny, most of the coins we see in circulation are heavily worn, scoring somewhere in the lower ranges, but occasionally, a pristine example surfaces. A 1981 penny graded MS67 or MS68 by PCGS or NGC is a sight to behold. Its copper surfaces gleam with original luster, its edges are sharp, and its details crisp, as if time had stood still since the day it was struck. Auction houses have proven again and again that collectors are willing to pay extraordinary amounts for coins in the highest grades. A 1981 penny that might otherwise be worth face value can suddenly fetch hundreds, even thousands, when certified at the very top levels. This is because rarity is not only about how many coins were made, it's about how many survived in a particular condition. Billions of 1981 pennies were produced, but only a handful have survived in nearly perfect condition, untouched by circulation, carefully preserved by chance or foresight. Those few survivors are the ones that ignite bidding wars at auction, and then there are the myths. Stories circulate in numismatic circles, whispered from collector to collector, about that one coin that somehow slipped through, that one 1981 penny with a flaw so unique it became priceless. Some say it was struck on the wrong planchet, perhaps a dime or foreign coin blank. Others claim it has a double denomination error, struck over another coin entirely. These types of errors are the holy grail of collecting because they are so rare and so bizarre that they feel like miracles of minting. The idea that such a coin could exist, and that a wealthy collector might have paid over $100 million for it, fuels imaginations. Is it fact? Is it fiction? In the end, the boundary between myth and reality becomes blurred, and the legend itself becomes part of the coin's allure. But why do people pay such outrageous sums for coins? Why would anyone, even the wealthiest collector, spend the equivalent of a palace, a fleet of luxury cars, or a private jet on a tiny copper coin with a face value of 1 cent? The answer lies in psychology, history, and human desire. At its core, collecting is about connection. People collect because they want to hold a piece of history in their hands. A 1981 penny is not just metal, it is a snapshot of America in the early 1980s, a time of economic change, of transition from copper to zinc, of inflation and innovation. For some, owning such a coin is like owning a time capsule, a physical reminder of where the country was and how far it has come. But beyond history, collecting is also about rarity and prestige. Human beings have always valued things that are scarce. Diamonds, gold, fine art. Their worth is not purely in their function, but in their scarcity. The rarer an object, the more desirable it becomes, and the more people are willing to pay to possess it. The 1981 penny, in its most ordinary form, is not rare. But in its rarest forms, proof variations, mint errors, top-graded specimens, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes a symbol of exclusivity. Owning one of these coins means you are part of a club so small, so elite, that the rest of the world can only look on in awe, and then there is the psychology of wealth itself. For the ultra-rich, spending $122 million on a coin is not about the money. It is about making a statement. It is about saying, I own something no one else can have. It is about prestige, legacy, and power. Just as a billionaire might buy a rare painting or an ancient manuscript, another might choose a coin, because coins carry stories that are universal. Money is something every human being understands, and to hold the rarest form of money is to hold something deeply symbolic. We must also remember that coins have been collected for thousands of years. Roman emperors collected coins. Medieval kings hoarded rare specimens. Presidents and generals have been fascinated by them. To collect coins is to participate in a tradition as old as civilization itself. When someone spends a fortune on a 1981 penny, they are not just buying metal. They are buying into that tradition. They are buying a seat at the table of history. The myths of a 1981 penny worth $122 million may or may not be rooted in documented fact, but what they reveal is the enduring allure of the coin. Whether it's a real sale that took place quietly between collectors, or just a story passed down through numismatic folklore, the effect is the same. It keeps the 1981 penny in the spotlight. It keeps people looking through their change, scouring bank rolls, and dreaming of the day they might stumble upon a treasure in the most unexpected place. And that is part of the beauty of coin collecting. It democratizes the treasure hunt. You don't need to be a billionaire to participate. Every person who has ever picked up a penny has the potential to discover something extraordinary. Every person has the chance, however slim, to find a coin that could change their life. The 1981 penny embodies this spirit. It is small enough to be overlooked, common enough to be found anywhere, yet mysterious enough to capture imaginations around the world. From the sharp lines of the proof coins to the quirks of doubled dies and mint errors, to the whispers of legendary sales at unfathomable prices, it invites us to look closer, to pay attention, to see that even the smallest objects can hold the greatest stories. When we talk about the market for coins, especially something as deceptively simple as the 1981 penny, we are really talking about a mirror that reflects human desire. Every collector's market, whether it's art, cars, stamps, or coins, is driven by the same forces: scarcity, condition, and demand. The demand for the 1981 penny is particularly fascinating because it straddles two worlds. On one side, it is still a coin that most people see as ordinary, something that lives at the bottom of jars, falls between couch cushions, and gets left behind on store counters. On the other side, in the eyes of collectors and investors, it becomes a historical artifact, a piece of art, and in its rarest forms, a once-in-a-lifetime investment. The coin market is not unlike the stock market. Prices rise and fall, trends shift, and collectors speculate on what the next big thing will be. But unlike stocks, coins have a physical presence that transcends financial charts. A coin is tangible. You can hold it, study it, and admire it. It doesn't just exist in numbers on a screen, it exists in the palm of your hand. That tangible quality makes rare coins like the 1981 cent appealing not only to seasoned numismatists but also to investors looking for alternative assets. So, how does the 1981 penny compare to other legendary coins? Let's take a look. Think of the 1933 Double Eagle, a gold coin that was never officially released into circulation, but a few specimens escaped destruction. When one sold at auction for over $18 million, it made headlines around the world. Or the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar, believed to be one of the first silver dollars ever struck by the United States Mint, which sold for over $10 million. Even common coins like the 1943 copper penny, a minting error that occurred during World War II, have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. These coins became legends because they embody rarity, historical importance, and collector demand all at once. The 1981 penny fits into this narrative as the quiet underdog. At face value, it is a penny, the lowest denomination of U.S. coinage. But in its rarest forms, whether as a flawless proof, a double die error, or the whispered ultra-rare specimen that supposedly fetched $122 million, it joins the ranks of those legendary coins that defy expectations. Its story is compelling because it shows us that greatness can be hidden in plain sight. You don't have to be gold or silver to become legendary. Even copper, even zinc, even a penny, can capture the world's imagination. Collectors and investors often ask, Is it worth holding on to 1981 pennies as an investment? The answer depends on perspective. For ordinary circulated pennies, the intrinsic copper content alone gives them a slight advantage. Because 1981 pennies are 95% copper, each one contains more than a cent's worth of metal value when copper prices rise. For that reason, some people hoard pre-1982 pennies as a kind of hedge against inflation, even though it is currently illegal to melt them down for scrap. Beyond metal value, however, the real investment potential lies in condition and rarity. A roll of uncirculated 1981 pennies, preserved carefully, may one day contain a gem that grades at the top levels, worth far more than the entire roll combined. For proof coins, especially the scarce Type II proofs, holding them in top condition has already proven to be a profitable decision for many collectors. But investing in coins is not just about money. It's about passion. It's about the joy of discovery, the thrill of the hunt, and the satisfaction of building a collection that tells a story. A 1981 penny is not just a financial asset, it is a link in the chain of American history. It represents the tail end of the copper era, the transition to zinc, and the enduring image of Lincoln that has graced the cent for more than a century. Market demand for coins like the 1981 penny often spikes when stories circulate of extraordinary sales. When news spreads that a particular specimen may have sold for tens of millions of dollars, collectors rush to check their own coins. Search engines fill with queries about the value of a 1981 penny, coin dealers see increased traffic, and coin roll hunters buy boxes of pennies from banks hoping to strike gold, or copper, in this case. The cycle feeds itself. Hype fuels interest fuels demand fuels price, and price fuels hype. Even if the $122 million story is more legend than fact, its very existence keeps the market alive. It keeps people searching, keeps them believing, and keeps the value of 1981 pennies in the spotlight. The long-term potential of the 1981 penny is also tied to generational collecting. As older collectors pass down their collections, new generations inherit not just coins, but stories. A grandson who inherits a collection from his grandfather may look at the 1981 penny and feel the weight of continuity. That continuity ensures that interest does not die out. In fact, with the rise of online marketplaces, coin collecting has never been more accessible. Anyone with a smartphone can buy, sell, and trade coins around the world. A rare 1981 penny can appear in an online auction in the United States and be purchased by a collector in Europe or Asia within minutes. That global marketplace magnifies demand and ensures that legendary coins do not fade into obscurity. The comparison to other collectibles is also worth noting. Just as a painting by Picasso or Van Gogh can sell for astronomical sums, just as a vintage Ferrari or a rare baseball card can break auction records, so too can a coin. The difference is that a coin like the 1981 penny is accessible in a way those other collectibles are not. You might never stumble upon a Picasso at a yard sale, but you might very well find a 1981 penny in your change. That possibility gives it a democratic magic, a sense that anyone could strike it rich, and that is why the legend of the $122 million penny persists. It is not just about money. It is about hope. It is about the idea that a tiny piece of copper, overlooked by billions, could become the key to a fortune. It is about the possibility that greatness is hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to recognize it. The 1981 penny, in all its variations, errors, proofs, and myths, is not just a coin. It is a story. It is a market. It is an investment. It is a dream. And it continues to remind us that the world of numismatics is not static. It is alive, shifting, growing, and always capable of surprising us. The 1981 penny is not just a coin, it is a cultural symbol. It carries the face of one of the most important figures in American history, Abraham Lincoln, a man who represents freedom, unity, and the enduring struggle for equality. When Victor David Brenner designed the Lincoln cent in 1909, he wasn't just putting a president's face on a coin. He was creating a tribute, a permanent reminder of Lincoln's legacy that would pass through millions of hands every single day. More than a century later, Lincoln's image still graces the penny, making it the longest-running design in American coinage. The 1981 penny sits firmly within that tradition, but it also holds a special place as the last full year of copper before the transition to zinc. Think about that for a moment. Every time you see a 1981 penny, you are looking at the end of an era. For decades, pennies had been made primarily of copper, a metal that symbolized strength and durability. But by the early 1980s, economic pressures made copper too expensive for the mint to continue using in such quantities. The penny had to change, and so in 1982, the zinc core with copper plating was introduced. This means that 1981 pennies are some of the last true copper coins in America's pocket change. That fact alone makes them historically significant. They are a bridge between the old and the new, a reminder of how economic realities shape even the smallest details of our daily lives. Culturally, the penny has always held a strange place in American life. On the one hand, it is seen as nearly worthless, a coin many people ignore or even throw away. On the other hand, it has a certain charm, a sentimental value that no other coin seems to have. People make wishes with pennies, tossing them into fountains. They pick them up off the ground, believing they bring good luck. They use them in sayings. A penny saved is a penny earned, a penny for your thoughts. The penny, despite its low value, has always carried weight in our imagination. And the 1981 penny, with its copper heart and Lincoln's steady gaze, represents the pinnacle of that tradition. But the fascination with the 1981 penny is not confined to the United States. Coin collecting is a global passion. Around the world, collectors seek out coins that represent milestones, transitions, and unique stories. The 1981 penny is sought after internationally not just because of its errors and proofs, but because it is part of the larger narrative of American coinage. Foreign collectors see it as a piece of Americana, a symbol of the United States at a turning point. Just as American collectors hunt for rare British sovereigns, Roman denarii, or Japanese yen from specific eras, international collectors are drawn to U.S. coins, and the 1981 penny is one that resonates. Online marketplaces have amplified this global reach. In the past, collectors were limited to coin shops, local shows, and mail-order catalogs. Today, a 1981 penny in pristine condition can appear in an online auction in New York and within hours be purchased by a collector in London, Tokyo, or Dubai. This global competition drives prices higher, because rarity is not just measured by domestic demand anymore. It is measured by the combined interest of collectors all over the world. That is why stories of extraordinary sales, like the whispers of the $122 million penny, travel so far and wide. They ignite curiosity across borders, making the 1981 penny an international object of fascination. Now let's step back and think about what that $122 million figure really means. Whether the sale was fact, myth, or something in between, the idea itself is powerful. It forces us to question the nature of value. How can a coin worth 1 cent be valued at millions, even hundreds of millions? The answer is that value is not fixed. Value is a story we tell ourselves, a collective agreement about what something is worth. For a billionaire who wants the rarest coin, $122 million may not seem like an expense but rather an opportunity to own something unique, to hold a treasure no one else can ever have. For collectors of more modest means, the story of that coin becomes motivation. It becomes the spark that keeps them searching through jars of change, through rolls from the bank, through estate sales and flea markets. It becomes the dream that keeps the hobby alive. In many ways, the 1981 penny represents the dual nature of money itself. On one side, it is practical, functional, a coin used for transactions, a way to buy a piece of candy or pay sales tax. On the other side, it is symbolic, emotional, and historical. It is a reminder of Lincoln, of copper, of the early 1980s, of the changes in the U.S. economy, and of the mysteries of collecting. That duality is why people love coins. They are not just currency, they are culture, history, and art combined into something small enough to slip into your pocket. And so we arrive at the dramatic conclusion of this story. The 1981 penny, whether common or rare, whether circulated or proof, whether worth 1 cent or worth millions, continues to inspire. It inspires collectors to keep searching, historians to keep studying, and dreamers to keep believing. It is proof that value can be hidden in the most ordinary of places, waiting to be discovered by those with the patience and the passion to look closely. The legend of the $122 million penny is not just about money. It is about possibility. It is about hope. It is about the idea that greatness can come from the smallest, most overlooked corners of our lives. Every time you hold a penny from 1981, you hold that possibility in your hand. You hold history, you hold art, you hold mystery, and maybe, just maybe, you hold a treasure that could change everything. If we really want to understand why the 1981 penny holds such a mystique, we have to place it in the broader tapestry of American coin history. Every coin tells a chapter of the nation's story, and every design, every metal change, every minting decision is influenced by politics, economics, and culture. The penny is no exception. In fact, it may be one of the clearest examples of how America's values are reflected in its money. Think back to 1909, when the Lincoln cent first appeared. Before Lincoln, no American president had ever been placed on circulating coinage. The decision to feature him was revolutionary, a bold move at the time. Lincoln was chosen not only because of his enduring legacy as the great emancipator, but also because 1909 marked the centennial of his birth. The coin was meant to be a tribute, a reminder of unity and sacrifice, and it was embraced by the public with such enthusiasm that it quickly became a permanent part of the nation's coinage. Fast forward through the decades. The wheat ears on the reverse, symbolic of prosperity, carried the design from 1909 to 1958. Then came the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959, celebrating the sesquicentennial of Lincoln's birth. And that's the design the 1981 penny carries, the very one most of us recognize instantly. So when we talk about a 1981 penny, we're not just talking about a coin minted in that year. We are talking about the weight of decades of symbolism layered onto a small copper disc. Collectors know this. They feel it when they hold the coin. That's why even common pennies are saved and studied, and why extraordinary pennies, like certain 1981 proofs, or era coins, or perhaps the mythical multimillion-dollar piece, inspire awe. To a true numismatist, every coin is more than metal. It is a story, a conversation across time, a connection between past and present. And here is where the anecdotes come in, because coin collecting is never just about the coins, it's about the people. There are countless stories of ordinary individuals stumbling upon extraordinary finds. A teenager searching through rolls of pennies from the bank, only to discover a rare doubled die. An elderly collector who purchased proof sets decades earlier, never realizing one of his 1981's coins was the scarcer Type II variety, only to have it appraised and find out it was worth thousands. A young child who picked up a penny off the sidewalk, brought it home, and years later learned that the date and mint-mark combination made it a prized rarity. And then there are the legends, whispers of coins sold in private sales for fortunes, far from the public eye. The 1981 penny said to have sold for $122 million falls into this category. Whether it truly changed hands at that price or whether it remains numismatic folklore almost doesn't matter, because the story itself keeps the dream alive. It fuels the passion of collectors, reminding them that hidden treasures might be anywhere, waiting to be found. But let's not forget the larger context. The 1981 penny isn't just part of America's story. It's part of a global tradition of coinage that stretches back thousands of years. Ancient Greek drachmas, Roman denarii, medieval silver groats. All of these coins once circulated as ordinary money. Today, many of them are priceless artifacts. Collectors across the world recognize that the coins of today can become the treasures of tomorrow. The 1981 penny is a perfect example of that phenomenon. A coin that billions once ignored has the potential to become a legend, not only because of its design and history, but because of the way it has captured the collective imagination. Globally, coin collecting is thriving. In Europe, Asia, Africa, and beyond, collectors trade, research, and hunt for coins with the same passion as their American counterparts. The 1981 penny is one of those coins that transcends borders. A collector in Tokyo or Berlin may never have spent a U.S. penny in daily life, but they know the significance of Lincoln, they know the story of copper and zinc, and they know the rumors of extraordinary value. This makes the 1981 penny a coin that resonates far beyond the United States, a coin that belongs not just to Americans, but to the world of numismatics as a whole. And when we compare the 1981 penny to other iconic coins, the 1943 copper penny, the 1955 double die, the 1969 S double die, the 1972 double die, or even rarities like the 1974 aluminum cent prototype, we begin to see how it fits into the narrative. Each of these coins has its own story, its own mystery, its own allure. The 1981 penny, with its place as one of the last true copper issues, stands shoulder to shoulder with them, not as an oddity, but as a defining piece of the puzzle. At the heart of all this is something deeper, the human desire to find meaning in the ordinary. The penny is the humblest coin in circulation, yet it is the one that carries the face of Lincoln, the one that inspires sayings and traditions, the one that children collect first, the one that sparks dreams of hidden fortune. The 1981 penny crystallizes that paradox. It is ordinary, yet extraordinary. Worth 1 cent, yet maybe worth millions. So when we reflect on the possibility of a $122 million penny, we are not just talking about money. We are talking about wonder. We are talking about the thrill of possibility, the romance of the hunt, and the enduring belief that even the smallest objects can hold the greatest stories. Every time you look at a 1981 penny, ask yourself, what am I really seeing? Am I seeing a piece of copper worth 1 cent, or am I seeing the last echo of an era, the face of Lincoln gazing steadily through time, the story of America etched into metal, and the dream that somewhere, hidden among billions, a treasure awaits? Because that is the true magic of coins, and that is why the 1981 penny will never be just a penny. For collectors, the 1981 penny isn't just a piece of history, it's a challenge, a puzzle, and a hunt. The idea that among billions of ordinary coins there could be a handful worth life-changing money is irresistible. But how do collectors actually search for these treasures? What tools do they use? What methods do they rely on, and what keeps them searching through jar after jar, roll after roll, year after year? The hunt often begins with the most basic activity in numismatics, coin roll hunting. This is exactly what it sounds like, going to a bank, purchasing rolls or even boxes of pennies, and carefully examining each one. Imagine the anticipation of opening a fresh roll, spilling out 50 pennies onto a desk, and scanning through them one by one, date by date, mintmark by mintmark. To an outsider, it might look tedious, but to a collector, it's a thrilling treasure hunt. Every coin is a possibility. Every coin could be the one dot when hunting for 1981 pennies. Collectors pay special attention to the mintmark. They look for the tiny D of Denver, the S of San Francisco, or the absence of a mark indicating Philadelphia. Those small letters can change everything. A Philadelphia 1981 penny may be common, but a San Francisco proof pulled from circulation by accident is a rare catch. The Type 2 proof, with its sharper S mint mark, is even more exciting. Magnification is one of the collector's best tools. A simple magnifying glass, a jeweler's loupe, or even a digital microscope allows hobbyists to spot doubling in the date or lettering, those ghostly extra impressions that signal a doubled die. Under magnification, what looks ordinary to the naked eye can suddenly reveal its secrets. Collectors learn to scan for irregularities, a tilted date, a blurry liberty, a faint doubling on "In God We Trust." These are the clues that separate common coins from hidden rarities. Lighting is another secret weapon. A coin held flat under harsh overhead light might look perfectly normal, but tilted at an angle, let the light catch the surface just right, and suddenly doubling or anomalies leap into view. Collectors often rotate coins slowly under light, almost like jewelers inspecting gemstones, because the right angle can reveal everything. Of course, identification doesn't stop at the eye test. Many collectors use reference guides, massive catalogs filled with photographs and descriptions of known varieties and errors. These guides, updated year after year, help collectors match what they see under magnification to recognize types. The 1981 penny has entries in these guides, from proof variations to small minting quirks, and knowing which ones are listed can mean the difference between tossing a penny back into circulation or setting aside a small fortune. In the modern age, collectors also rely on digital communities. Forums, Facebook groups, Reddit threads, and YouTube channels are filled with hobbyists posting pictures of their finds and asking, "Is this something?" The 1981 penny often appears in these discussions. One collector posts an image of what looks like a doubled die, another argues it's just machine doubling, another chimes in with references to auction records. The conversation never ends, and it's that energy, that shared passion, that keeps the hunt alive. But with digital communities comes another layer, the spread of myths and legends. Stories of rare coins, sometimes true and sometimes exaggerated, travel faster than ever before. Someone posts an article about a penny worth millions, and suddenly, millions of readers are checking their pockets. The legend of the $122 million 1981 penny is a perfect example of this. Whether it came from a private sale, a misunderstanding, or pure rumor, the story has taken on a life of its own. It appears on websites, in social media posts, in viral videos, and every time it spreads, more people become interested. Some critics argue that these stories inflate expectations, leading people to believe that any old 1981 penny is worth a fortune. But others argue that the stories are good for the hobby. They bring in new collectors, spark curiosity, and keep numismatics in the public eye. After all, what's more exciting than the possibility that you could be holding a treasure without even knowing it? Grading services play a major role in separating myth from reality. A coin might look rare to the untrained eye, but only professional grading can confirm its true quality and value. Collectors who believe they have found a special 1981 penny often send it to PCGS or NGC, where experts examine it under controlled conditions, assign it a grade, and seal it in a protective holder with a label. That label becomes a passport of authenticity, proof to the market that the coin is genuine and valuable. Without it, Claims of rarity often remain in the realm of myth. But let's not dismiss the myths too quickly, because myths are part of what makes collecting so exciting. They add drama. They add hope. They keep the idea alive that somewhere out there, in a forgotten box in someone's attic, or in a bankroll that hasn't been touched in years, there might be a penny worth more than a mansion. And until every 1981 penny has been examined, which is impossible, the possibility can never be ruled out. What's remarkable is how the legend of the 1981 penny fits into a larger pattern we see in collectibles. Think of the Honus Wagner baseball card, once dismissed as just cardboard, now worth millions. Think of the Action Comics #1 comic book, sold for pennies at newsstands, now valued at millions because it introduced Superman. Think of rare stamps, toys, and vintage video games that have skyrocketed in value. Each of these started as ordinary objects, produced in large numbers, used and discarded by most. But because of rarity, condition, and story, they became treasures. The 1981 penny follows the same path, and so the modern collector continues the hunt, armed with magnifiers, reference guides, and online communities, driven by stories of astronomical values and the possibility of discovery. Some find small wins, a double die worth a few $100s, a proof coin worth 1,000. Others find nothing more than the joy of the search. But all are connected by the same dream, the dream that one day they might be the person to uncover the legendary coin, the one that defies belief, the one whispered about as the $122 million penny. When we step back and think about it, the fascination with the 1981 penny isn't really about the coin itself. It's about something deeper, something almost universal in human nature, our love for rarity, for the hidden, for the extraordinary lurking in the ordinary. Coins have always been more than just money. They've been symbols of power, of culture, of belief. And sometimes, without anyone realizing it, they become symbols of rarity and treasure. The 1981 penny is one of those symbols. Billions were minted. Billions circulated. Billions were spent, lost, or forgotten. And yet, among those billions, a few stand out, elevated by condition, error, or legend. This idea, that something produced in massive numbers can suddenly become priceless because of a small detail, touches something profound in us. It reminds us that rarity isn't just about numbers. It's about meaning. Look at history. The first Roman coins weren't just money. They were propaganda. Each coin bore the image of an emperor, spreading his face and power across the empire. Most of those coins are long gone, melted down or worn away. But a few survive, and those survivors, once worth mere fractions in their own time, are now worth fortunes. They're studied in museums, auctioned for staggering sums, and treated like sacred artifacts. The same is true of Greek coins, Chinese cash coins, medieval gold florins. They all started as money, but time, survival, and story turned them into treasures. The same transformation is happening with the 1981 penny. It is not just copper. It is not just zinc. It is not just a coin that once bought candy or gum. It is a survivor of a transitional period in American money, the last breath of an era when pennies were still mostly copper, when minting techniques were shifting, when subtle varieties were being struck. The 1981 penny carries that weight of transition, and because of that, it is more than it seems. This is why humans are drawn to rarity. It's not just about the object. It's about the story. The Mona Lisa is just paint on canvas, but its story, the genius of Da Vinci, the mystery of her smile, the theft and recovery, the centuries of fascination, makes it priceless. A rare stamp, a vintage car, a first edition book, none of these things are inherently worth millions. What makes them valuable is the story, the scarcity, the human attachment to them. The 1981 penny belongs to that same category, and it's not just about collectors or museums. It's about ordinary people finding extraordinary value. A child with a penny jar, a worker getting change at a gas station, a retiree rolling coins from a lifetime of savings. Any one of them could stumble upon a coin that changes their life. That possibility, however slim, is intoxicating. It makes every penny feel alive with potential. But here's where the metaphor goes even deeper. The 1981 penny isn't just about monetary value. It's about hidden worth. Think of how often in life we overlook the small, the common, the everyday. We walk past people without seeing their full stories. We dismiss simple things as unimportant. Yet, sometimes, hidden in plain sight, extraordinary value lies waiting. The 1981 penny reminds us of this truth. It reminds us that greatness is not always obvious, that sometimes the most ordinary things contain the most extraordinary potential. This is why stories of the $122 million penny capture so many imaginations. Yes, it may sound unbelievable. Yes, it may stretch the limits of what's realistic. But the story matters, because it taps into something we all feel, the dream that we might hold something priceless without even knowing it. It's the same reason people buy lottery tickets, hunt for gold, or search the skies for shooting stars. We want to believe in hidden fortune. We want to believe in magic, and in a way, coins are magic. They are tiny circles of metal that outlast the people who made them, that pass through countless hands, that carry history across time. A 1981 penny minted in Philadelphia might have bought a soda that same year, then sat in a drawer for decades, then been dropped in a parking lot, then picked up by a child, then passed into a collection. Each coin lives a journey, and that journey, multiplied billions of times, becomes the story of a nation. When we frame it that way, the penny isn't small at all. It's immense. It's a witness to history. And the 1981 penny, with all its myths and mysteries, stands as a shining example of how even the humblest object can inspire wonder, speculation, and dreams of fortune. So when people ask, why would anyone value a penny at $122 million? The answer is simple. Because value isn't just about metal or utility. It's about rarity, story, and human imagination. And as long as we value those things, the legend of the 1981 penny will live on. When we look toward the future of the 1981 penny, the question isn't just what it's worth now, but what it could become. Value is not static. It shifts with time, with demand, with discoveries, with stories. A coin that seems modest today can explode in worth tomorrow, and the 1981 penny is poised for exactly that kind of transformation. Think about this. Every year that passes, more and more 1981 pennies disappear. Some are lost forever in landfills. Some are corroded beyond recognition. Some are melted down, some simply vanish into the void of time. Out of the billions minted, fewer and fewer survive in pristine condition. And this natural process of attrition is one of the strongest drivers of value in numismatics. What was once common slowly becomes scarce, and what is scarce becomes valuable. Already, high-grade 1981 pennies fetch premiums. Mint state examples, especially those with sharp details and brilliant luster, sell for far more than face value. Proof examples, particularly the Type 2 varieties, already demand strong attention. But fast forward 50 years. By then, the pool of untouched, uncirculated coins will be far smaller. The collectors of today will have passed on their coins to heirs or institutions. The ones that remain in pristine slabs will become treasures in their own right, commanding prices that seem unimaginable today. But the future of the 1981 penny isn't just about supply and demand. It's also about technology. Already, collectors are using digital microscopes, high-resolution scanners, and even artificial intelligence to examine coins with more precision than ever before. Imagine a future where every coin can be instantly scanned and analyzed by an app, identifying errors, varieties, and grades with perfect accuracy. In that world, the rarest 1981 pennies will be instantly recognizable, and their value will only climb as collectors compete for them. Even blockchain technology is creeping into numismatics. Some companies are experimenting with digital certificates of authenticity, linking physical coins to secure digital records that cannot be forged. In the future, it's entirely possible that a legendary coin like a $122 million 1981 penny could be tied to a blockchain ledger, ensuring its authenticity for eternity. Such systems could even fractionalize ownership, allowing multiple people to own shares of a single coin. Imagine thousands of collectors each owning a tiny piece of the world's rarest penny. That may sound futuristic, but it's already happening with art and other collectibles. And then there's the cultural factor. Each generation of collectors brings new energy, new priorities, and new passions. Baby boomers collected coins in huge numbers, inspired by the hobby's golden age. Millennials and Gen Z are rediscovering the hobby, often through viral stories, social media, and YouTube channels. For them, the thrill of the hunt combines with the excitement of community and technology. The 1981 penny, with its aura of mystery and wealth, fits perfectly into this new world of collecting. It's the kind of coin that spreads through memes, videos, and digital word of mouth, sparking curiosity even among people who never considered themselves collectors. The next generation will not just collect coins, they will curate them, showcase them digitally, and connect them to global markets. Auctions may take place in virtual reality spaces, where bidders from around the world examine coins in lifelike 3D. A rare 1981 penny could be displayed in a virtual museum visited by millions, even while the physical coin sits safely in a vault. In this way, the coin becomes not just a collectible, but a cultural artifact shared on a global stage. And let's not forget how legends grow with time. The story of the $122 million penny may sound like exaggeration today, but stories have a way of solidifying into myths. Think of the Hope Diamond, shrouded in tales of curses. Think of King Tut's tomb, surrounded by whispers of bad luck. The 1981 penny could easily join this pantheon of legendary artifacts, with future generations repeating its story not as rumor, but as folklore. A coin that once bought a stick of gum could become a symbol of wealth, mystery, and the power of the small to defy the large. If we dare to dream further, imagine a century from now, when pennies may no longer exist at all. The U.S. Mint has debated eliminating them for years, and at some point, it may happen. If pennies vanish from circulation, the survivors will become relics of a bygone age, tokens of nostalgia, proof of a world that once was. In that world, the 1981 penny will not just be rare, it will be historic. Its value will not just be measured in dollars, but in its ability to connect people to a past that no longer exists. So, will the 1981 penny be worth more in the future? Without question. Will it reach astronomical figures like $122 million again? Possibly, if the right coin, the right story, and the right moment converge. After all, the market is unpredictable. Who could have guessed that comic books, sneakers, or Pokemon cards would one day sell for millions? The same forces of nostalgia, rarity, and cultural hype could propel the 1981 penny into the stratosphere once more. But even if no single penny ever sells for such a staggering amount again, the legend will remain. And legends, in the end, are what keep hobbies alive. The possibility of greatness, the possibility of treasure, the possibility of history in your hands, that is what keeps collectors searching, generation after generation. And perhaps that is the greatest value of the 1981 penny. Not the copper, not the zinc, not even the millions of dollars. But the hope it inspires, the curiosity it sparks, and the connection it builds between past, present, and future. And so we arrive at the end of this journey, the long, winding story of a coin so small in size yet so immense in meaning. The 1981 penny, a coin struck by the billions, a coin most people never looked at twice, a coin meant only to pass from hand to hand in silence. And yet, here we are, decades later, speaking its name with reverence, attaching to it numbers so large they sound impossible, and treating it not as money, but as a piece of living history. Think about what we have uncovered together. A weight of just 3.11 grams if copper, 2.5 grams if zinc, yet carrying the weight of eras, of decisions made by mints, of economies shifting, of stories whispered from collector to collector. A design so familiar, Lincoln's solemn face, the Lincoln Memorial standing proud, yet that very familiarity hides layers of nuance, varieties, proofs, type 1 and type 2, errors and misstrikes that transform an ordinary cent into an object worth a fortune. We trace the path of rarity, of human obsession, of how something so abundant becomes scarce through the passage of time, how scarcity becomes value, and how value becomes legend. We saw how technology, markets, and generations shaped the destiny of a single coin. We explored the philosophy that every penny in your pocket might hold secrets, that every overlooked object might conceal greatness. And we followed the dream that one coin, perhaps sitting quietly in a jar on a shelf, could be the very coin that changes everything. The $122 million penny may sound like fantasy, but fantasy is the heartbeat of collecting. It is what makes people search rolls of coins late at night, what makes treasure hunters dig through dusty boxes, what makes history lovers preserve the tiniest pieces of the past. Fantasy becomes story, story becomes legend, and legend becomes value. The 1981 penny has crossed that threshold. It is no longer just a cent. It is a symbol, and symbols endure. Long after the last penny leaves circulation, long after technology replaces the clink of coins with the swipe of screens, the 1981 penny will still be remembered. It will sit in collections, in museums, in safes. It will be displayed in documentaries, in digital archives, in the whispers of auction rooms. It will inspire young collectors to search their pockets, old collectors to reminisce, and dreamers everywhere to believe in the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary. So the next time you hold a penny, any penny, pause for just a moment. Look at its date. Feel its weight. Study its surface. Ask yourself, is this just one more cent, or is it something more? Could it be a survivor, a rarity, a treasure worth more than houses, cars, even empires? Could you be holding the next 1981 legend in your hand without even knowing it? That is the magic of the penny. That is the magic of the 1981 cent. And that is the magic of collecting itself, the knowledge that greatness is everywhere, if only we learn to see it. So, to everyone listening, remember this: coins are not just coins. They are stories. They are history. They are dreams. And sometimes, just sometimes, they are worth $122 million. And with that, we close the book on the 1981 penny. A coin, a mystery, a legend. A cent that became a symbol. A piece of metal that became a fortune. A tiny circle that became eternal.